Have you ever brushed off a weird stomach pain, thinking it was just something you ate? Maybe some spicy food, or a little too much coffee. We all do it, but sometimes, those little discomforts aren't as innocent as they seem. Me tell you something personal. A few months ago, my friend Joe, he's 62, started feeling this odd burning in his upper belly. Nothing too painful, just this nagging warmth that came and went. He blamed it on indigestion, bought some over-the-counter antacids, and carried on with life. Fast forward 3 months, and Joe was sitting in a doctor's office hearing the words no one ever wants to hear: "You have stage 2 stomach cancer." Now, I don't tell you this to scare you. I tell you because Joe's not alone. Stomach cancer, or gastric cancer, is tricky. It sneaks in quietly, with symptoms that can look like a dozen other everyday problems. That's why it's often caught too late when treatment is harder and options are fewer. If you're over 50, this matters even more. Our bodies change with age, and sometimes we ignore signs that we'd never overlook when we were younger. That's why this conversation is so important, because the earlier you catch stomach cancer, the better your chances of beating it. In this video, we're going to talk about 5 silent symptoms of stomach cancer you should never ignore. No medical jargon, no scare tactics, just clear, honest information you can use to protect yourself and your loved ones. Let's begin with the first sign that often gets overlooked: that dull ache or burning feeling in your upper belly. It might feel like heartburn, or maybe just a little pressure after a meal, but if it sticks around, especially if it comes back night after night, it's time to listen. One woman I spoke to, her name's Sandra, 59 years old, said she'd had this low, nagging ache right under her ribcage for weeks. She thought it was reflux, especially since it got worse after dinner. But when antacids didn't help, she finally went in for a checkup. They found an early-stage tumor, small but growing. The good news? Because she caught it early, her treatment went smoothly, and she's cancer-free today. That burning belly feeling is easy to explain away, especially if you have a history of acid reflux or ulcers. But if the pain changes, becomes more frequent, or just doesn't feel right, please don't ignore it. Your body whispers before it screams. Now, let's talk about something else many people experience, but rarely take seriously: that constant bloated, heavy feeling after meals. You know the one. You eat half a sandwich and suddenly feel like you had a 3-course meal. You're full on comfortable, maybe burping a little more than usual. You chalk it up to getting older, slower digestion, maybe gas. But when that sensation becomes a daily thing, it's worth a closer look. Take Richard, 66. He loved his evening meals nothing fancy, just a small plate of rice and fish. But lately, every dinner left him feeling uncomfortably full. He wasn't eating more than usual, but his stomach felt tight and stretched. He even started skipping meals because he hated how he felt afterward. His doctor ran a few tests, and sure enough, there was a growth pressing against his stomach lining. Not large, but enough to disrupt his digestion. It turned out to be malignant. Luckily, it hadn't spread. Surgery and a few months of chemo gave him a clean bill of health. This sense of fullness, especially when it's out of proportion to what you've eaten, is something doctors call early satiety. But you don't need fancy terms. Just pay attention to how your body reacts after meals. If a few bites suddenly fill you up, that could be a red flag your stomach's not functioning the way it should. Now, I want to pause for just a second and speak to you directly, because I know how easy it is to brush this stuff off. We're used to powering through discomfort, especially those of us in our 50s, 60 seconds, and beyond. We've seen a lot, we've felt a lot, and we've learned to live with a certain amount of pain. But not all pain should be lived with. Sometimes, your body is trying to tell you something important. And while it may feel easier to ignore it, I promise you catching something early is so much better than waiting until it's too late. So far, we've talked about unusual belly pain and that heavy, bloated, hard to digest feeling. Both are common. Both are also easy to overlook. But when they don't go away, or they start to change, don't write them off. Be your own advocate. Ask questions. Get checked. And if you're thinking, "But I don't want to bother my doctor with something small," I get it. But let me remind you, what seems small today could become something much bigger tomorrow. You are not a burden. Your health is worth the conversation. Now, let's continue this journey and look at another quiet signal your body might be sending, a sign that often hides behind fatigue and weight loss. We were just talking about how easy it is to overlook that constant fullness or that subtle stomach ache. But there's another signal your body might be giving you, something even easier to ignore: a slow, unexplained loss of energy. Have you ever had one of those weeks, maybe even months, where you just feel drained for no clear reason? You're sleeping the same, laying okay, but your energy just isn't there. Everything feels like a chore. You wake up tired, you go to bed tired, and even walking to the mailbox feels like a bit too much. Fatigue happens to all of us. It's a part of aging, right? That's what most people tell themselves. But here's the thing: when fatigue comes out of nowhere and lingers for weeks, it's not something to ignore, especially when it's paired with another symptom, unexpected weight loss. Let me introduce you to Mary. She's 65, retired, and one of the most active people I know. A few months back, she started losing weight. Not much at first, just a few pounds. She thought it was from walking more and eating smaller portions, but then she dropped another 5 pounds without trying. She wasn't on a diet. She hadn't changed anything. She just kept shrinking. At the same time, she felt constantly tired. Her afternoon walks turned into short trips to the corner store, and even that felt like work. When she finally went to her doctor, they discovered her iron levels were low, likely due to internal bleeding in the stomach. And after further testing, they found a tumor. It was small and treatable. She caught it just in time. You see, your stomach does more than just digest food. It plays a role in absorbing nutrients and keeping your blood healthy. When cancer starts developing in the stomach lining, it can cause tiny internal bleeds. Over time, you lose iron. That leads to anemia. And anemia makes you feel like your tank is constantly empty, no matter how much you rest. Weight loss without trying might sound like a dream to some people, but at our age, it should raise an eyebrow, especially if it's more than 5 pounds in a month, or if your clothes start feeling loose without you doing anything differently. And what if this fatigue is paired with something else? Maybe an upset stomach that just won't go away. Maybe even a little nausea after meals, or worse, moments when you feel the urge to throw up, and sometimes do. That brings us to another sign of stomach cancer that hides in plain sight: nausea and vomiting that keeps coming back. Now, of course, we've all had stomach bugs, food poisoning, motion sickness. It happens. But this is different. I'm talking about that nagging queasiness that just sticks around. The kind that makes you skip meals or feel uneasy even when you haven't eaten anything strange. A friend of mine, Tony, 68, started feeling a bit nauseous after lunch most days. He thought maybe it was his medication, or maybe he was just sensitive to greasy foods. But then the vomiting started, not every day, but enough to make him concerned. At first, it looked normal, but one day, it was dark, almost black. That's when he called his doctor. Turns out what he saw was partially digested blood. His stomach was bleeding from the inside, and it was because of a tumor. Luckily, it was caught before it spread. This part's important, so lean in with me for a moment. If you ever vomit something dark, thick, or with a coffee ground texture, don't wait. That could mean bleeding in your stomach. It might not be cancer, it could be an ulcer. But either way, it needs to be checked. Even if you're not vomiting, or nausea isn't something to live with, especially if it's new, and especially if it's getting worse over time. Your stomach is talking to you. Don't tune it out. And here's the thing: most people don't want to talk about these symptoms. It feels gross, embarrassing, even. But you know what's more uncomfortable than talking about it? Living with regret because we didn't say something sooner. Sometimes we think we're being tough by pushing through symptoms, but real strength is knowing when something feels wrong and doing something about it. So far, we've looked at pain, fullness, fatigue, weight loss, and nausea. These are things that, on their own, might not mean much, but together, they start to paint a picture your doctor can't ignore. Let me ask you this: have you noticed any changes in your appetite lately? Not just feeling full too soon, but something even more subtle like getting bored of food, not enjoying meals, or just not wanting to eat much at all. That brings us to another quiet but serious symptom, early satiety. It means feeling full too quickly after eating. And I don't mean after a big Thanksgiving dinner. I'm talking about feeling stuffed after just a few bites of toast. When a tumor begins to grow near the entrance or exit of your stomach, it can literally interfere with how much food your stomach can hold. So even if you want to eat, your body shuts down the appetite early. It can feel like pressure, tightness, or just plain disinterest in food. One gentleman I met, Mr. Franklin, 72 years old, said he used to love his breakfast routine: 2 eggs, toast, and coffee. But lately, he couldn't finish half of it without feeling uncomfortable. He stopped eating breakfast, then started skipping lunch. He thought it was just age or maybe stress. But the truth was, his stomach was slowly being taken over by a cancer that had been growing for months. Again, this isn't about panic. This is about awareness. When your appetite changes, when food stops feeling satisfying, pay attention. Especially if that change comes with the other things we've talked about: stomach pain, fatigue, nausea, and weight loss. Now this is a heavy conversation, but it's also a hopeful one, because this kind of knowledge can save lives. The sooner you notice something, the sooner you can act. And that's what gives you power. You're not helpless. You're not at the mercy of whatever your body decides to do. You have the ability to ask questions, to speak up, to seek answers, and don't wait for things to get worse. If something feels off, trust that inner voice. Go in, talk to your doctor, get the tests, because even if it turns out to be nothing, at least you'll know. And if it is something, you've caught it early. Let's keep going and talk about why these symptoms happen in the first place, what causes stomach cancer to show up, and what you can do to reduce your risk. When we start connecting the dots between these silent symptoms like fatigue, weight loss, nausea, and that uncomfortable fullness after just a few bites, it's only natural to wonder, why does this happen? What causes stomach cancer to begin with? Well, many health issues. It's not just one thing. Sometimes it's our environment, sometimes it's our habits, and sometimes it's something we carry in our genes without even knowing it. Let's talk about one of the most common causes first: a tiny bacterium called Helicobacter pylori, or H. pylori for short. You've probably never heard of it, but it lives in the stomach of more than half the world's population. Most people never even feel it, but for some, H. pylori slowly damages the lining of the stomach over the years. It creates chronic inflammation, sometimes ulcers, and for a small percentage, it can lead to cancer. Now, don't panic. Just having H. pylori doesn't mean you'll get cancer, but if you've had long-term stomach discomfort, ulcers, or indigestion that doesn't go away, it's worth getting tested. A simple breath test or stool sample is all it takes to find out. And if it's there, the treatment is often just a round of antibiotics and acid-reducing medication. Catching it early and clearing it out could mean stopping a future cancer before it even begins. But H. pylori isn't the only player in the game. Let's take a moment to talk about lifestyle. The truth is, what we eat, drink, and do each day plays a major role in our stomach's long-term health. Take smoking, for instance. Most people associate it with lung cancer, and yes, it's a huge cause of that. But smoking also damages the stomach lining and increases the risk of gastric cancer. Add alcohol to the mix, especially in large amounts or on a regular basis, and that risk multiplies. Together, they can wear down your body's natural defenses. And then there's diet. A lot of us grew up in a time when salty, preserved, and smoked foods were a kitchen staple. Pickled vegetables, canned meats, smoked fish. It was convenient and tasty. But these foods often contain compounds like nitrates and nitrites, which, when broken down in the stomach, can become carcinogenic. Again, eating these occasionally isn't a crime, but eating them often and over years does raise your risk. That doesn't mean you need to switch to kale smoothies and quinoa overnight. It just means being mindful. Try to balance things out. Add more fresh vegetables, fruits, and whole grains into your meals. Cut back just a little on the processed stuff. Small changes, no pressure, one better choice at a time. Now, here's something that surprised a lot of people when they heard it. Being overweight or having type 2 diabetes can also raise your risk of stomach cancer. These conditions create chronic inflammation in the body, and inflammation, when it lingers, is like an open invitation for disease to grow. In a modest weight loss, just 5 or 10 pounds can make a difference. And that doesn't mean going on a crash diet. Just adding a short daily walk, switching soda for water, or getting a bit more sleep can help. You're not aiming for perfection, you're aiming for progress. Of course, we can't change everything. Genetics play a role too. If someone in your family, especially a parent or sibling, had stomach cancer, your risk is higher. That doesn't mean you're destined to get it, but it does mean you should be more aware of your body signals and get regular checkups. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to family history. Now, here's something a lot of people ask. If I already have these symptoms, what do I do? Start simple. Make an appointment with your primary care doctor. You don't need to self-diagnose or panic. Just have an honest conversation. Explain what you've been feeling, how long it's been going on, whether it's getting worse, and anything else that feels unusual. They may order some basic blood work. They might suggest an endoscopy, a test where a small camera looks inside your stomach. It sounds scary, but it's usually quick, and many people sleep through it. Most importantly, it can catch problems long before they become dangerous, and if you're feeling fine right now, great. That's even better. But let this conversation today be a reminder to stay proactive. Know the symptoms. Pay attention to the little things. Keep a journal if something seems off. Catching stomach cancer early can literally save your life. Look, I know talking about cancer isn't fun, but it's important. Because we're not just talking about illness, we're talking about time. More mornings with your grandkids, more evenings walking the dog, more birthdays, holidays, laughs, and memories. And all of that is worth protecting. So here's what I want you to take away from all of this. Don't ignore what your body is trying to tell you. Stomach cancer may be quiet, but you don't have to be. You have every right to ask questions, to seek answers, and to take control of your health. You've already taken the first step by watching this video and educating yourself, and that's powerful. Really powerful. Before we wrap up, I'd love to hear from you. Have you or someone you know experienced any of the symptoms we've talked about? Maybe you've had your own story about indigestion or weight loss that turned out to be something else. Share it in the comments. You never know who your words might help, and if you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up so others can find it too. Subscribe to the channel if you want more honest, practical health advice like this delivered in a way that respects your experience and values your time. Remember, small changes can make a big difference. One checkup, one healthier meal, one moment of courage to say, hey, something doesn't feel right. Here's to listening to your body, trusting your instincts, and living your best life at any age. You've earned it. Take care of yourself. You matter. And we'll see you in the next video.